It was supposed to be a quiet Tuesday morning, just me, my daughter, and the yellow school bus rounding the corner. But then Karen showed up, HOA board member, clipboard in hand, fury in her eyes. She started yelling at my 10-year-old for standing on the community lawn. My daughter froze, terrified. I watched from the patrol car across the street, still in uniform after my night shift. When Karen stormed up to grab my kid's backpack, I stepped out, badge glinting in the morning sun. Her voice cracked mid-sentence. That's when she realized. She'd just laid hands on the chief of police's daughter. And that was only the beginning of her downfall. Our neighborhood wasn't just another suburban community. It was a mini-kingdom, ruled by a self-appointed queen named Karen Whitmore. She'd lived there longer than anyone chaired the HOA board for 8 years and made it her life's mission to preserve community standards. Translation: she controlled everything, from mailbox colors to how long your grass could be before she fined you $50. When I moved in, I was looking for peace. After 20 years in law enforcement and a recent promotion to chief of police, I wanted my daughter, Emma, to have a normal childhood. The HOA brochures had promised safety, harmony, and family values. But behind the manicured lawns and polite smiles, there was an invisible web of control. One that Karen tightened around anyone who didn't bow to her authority. At first, I tried to keep a low profile. I'd wave when I saw her at the mailbox. I paid my dues. I didn't even argue when she sent reminders about trimming a hedge that had grown half an inch past HOA code. But over time, I noticed how she treated others. She bullied single parents. She shamed retirees who couldn't keep up with landscaping costs. She even fined a disabled veteran for having an unsightly ramp. And then, she noticed Emma. Emma was a bright, gentle soul, the kind of kid who drew rainbows on sidewalks and greeted the school bus driver every morning with a hug. But Karen saw her differently. To her, Emma represented non-compliance. The HOA had strict rules about where children could wait for the bus, not on lawns, not near flower beds, and definitely not near the HOA sign. To most people, these were meaningless details, but to Karen, they were sacred laws. The first note came one Monday morning, a folded paper taped to my door. Please ensure your child waits on the sidewalk, not HOA property. Repeat offenses may result in fines. It was signed, Karen W., HOA President. I ignored it. Surely no one would enforce such nonsense. I was wrong. It started small. Karen began standing at her window every morning when the bus arrived, her eyes fixed on Emma like a hawk watching prey. I'd see the curtain twitch. Sometimes she'd step outside and shout reminders across the street. Then she began writing citations, official-looking notices with the HOA letterhead. Child loitering on common grounds, warning issued. I tried reasoning with her once. I told her Emma was just a kid and that the bus stop had no marked lines or instructions. Karen smiled that tight, self-satisfied smile and said, "Rules are rules, Chief." She always emphasized my title, like she was daring me to abuse my position. But she didn't know me. I believed in fairness, not intimidation. Weeks passed. Emma became anxious every morning. She'd ask, "Dad, is she going to yell at me again today?" My heart broke hearing that. I started leaving earlier to sit in my car nearby, just in case. And then came the morning that changed everything. It was foggy, early spring. The air smelled like rain, and visibility was low. I'd parked across from the stop after finishing a long shift, still in my uniform. Emma stood quietly by the curb, backpack on, tracing circles on the sidewalk with her shoe. Karen appeared, power-walking from her house, clutching her ever-present clipboard. She started yelling before she even reached Emma. I could hear her voice cutting through the mist. "This isn't your property. You can't stand there." Emma tried to step back, but Karen kept advancing. The other kids scattered. Then Karen did something unforgivable. She reached out and grabbed Emma's backpack strap to pull her off the curb. That's when I opened my car door. Karen froze when she saw me approach, uniform, badge, and all. Her face went pale. She tried to stammer something about community safety, but her voice cracked. "Ma'am," I said evenly, "you just put your hands on a child, my child." She tried to backtrack. I was just preventing her from trespassing." I radioed dispatch calmly and requested an officer on scene for a civil disturbance involving assault on a minor. Within minutes, a patrol car rolled up, lights flashing softly in the fog. Neighbors began stepping out of their doors, drawn by the commotion. Karen's confidence crumbled as the officer took her statement. Her usual smugness was gone, replaced by trembling excuses. "It was a misunderstanding," she kept repeating. But the body cam footage, plus the fact that a dozen witnesses saw her grab a child, told a different story. As chief, I stayed out of the process. I let my officers handle it by the book. Karen was cited for misdemeanor assault and harassment. When the HOA tried to negotiate privately, the city attorney declined. The case went public. By the evening, the entire neighborhood knew what had happened. The HOA chat exploded with messages, some defending her, others furious that their leader had crossed a line. And for the first time, Karen didn't show up to the board meeting that week. The following month was strangely quiet. The HOA scrambled to contain the damage, issuing apologies and promising review of community guidelines. But the damage was done. Parents who been too afraid to speak up now came forward with their own stories. Threats, fines, shaming emails. The city launched an investigation into the HOA's operations, uncovering years of overreach and mismanagement. Karen's resignation came not long after, framed as personal reasons. But everyone knew the truth. Emma started smiling again at the bus stop. The kids returned. The neighborhood finally felt normal. Not perfect, but peaceful. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma asked, "Dad, did Karen go to jail?" I smiled softly. "No, sweetie. But sometimes the real punishment isn't jail. It is losing the power you use to hurt people." That line stuck with me long after she went to bed. Months later, I was invited to speak at a community safety forum about harassment and abuse of authority. I used our story as an example, not of revenge, but of boundaries, of how power, whether it's a badge or an HOA title, must always serve others, not control them. The community slowly rebuilt. We established new HOA bylaws with clear accountability and an independent complaint system. No more secret fines, no more intimidation. Karen moved away quietly, the same way most bullies do when the mirror finally shows them who they are. And every time I pass that bus stop, I remember that morning. The fear in my daughter's eyes, the shock on Karen's face, and the moment justice wasn't about rank or revenge, but about reminding people where the real line is. Because sometimes, the only way to stop a bully is to let them run headfirst into the truth.